Hey everyone, I'm coming to you live from my bedroom. It is September 29th and it feels like March 13th because that's the second day I was home from, work because of coronavirus and it's still continuing. But okay, so I have a blog called The Prosiest and I read a lot about eating disorders and people are always like asking me questions and stuff. And so I figured I'd start making videos. Oy vey. I don't know what I'm doing, but hopefully this helps someone. So my first video is going to be about what to do to help someone, how to support somebody who might maybe has an eating disorder or a bad relationship with food. Um, the other day, one of my friends told me that I'm an eating disorder like subject matter expert, which I'm not. I don't have like any training, or I'm not like a therapist whatever. I've just experienced an eating disorder and I've known a lot of people that have experienced eating disorders. And I've talked to a lot of doctors and I've talked to a lot of therapists and I've talked to a lot of dietitians and run the gamut. I've also done a lot of research because I write about eating disorders and I want to know like more about how my own brain works and why I fell into that. So, not that I fell into it. It's not like a crevasse, But so anyway, he's like, you're like a subject matter expert on the interwebs, and I was like, not really, but I'll give it a go. So one of the most common questions I get is, I'm reading, so don't mind my eyes down here. One of the most common questions I get is how to support somebody. It's usually from like someone's parents or siblings or friends, and they want to know how they can help somebody who they think maybe has a problem. They're like, do I stage an intervention? Like, da 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 da, what do I do? And first, I would say don't talk about food. Don't make comments about food or weight or if they're big, if they're small. Like, just don't talk about it. Don't talk about food. Don't make an issue of weight for sure, but also don't judge other people. Like, don't be like, oh my God, look at that fat ass over there. Like just don't even go there ever around this person and probably ever in general because that's like a shitty thing to do. So that's my first tip. But it's also not possible. I always tell this to everyone too. It's not possible to help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. Before I sought treatment for my eating disorder, probably like a dozen people expressed concern for me. Friends, teammates, my coaches, athletic trainers at the college I was at, all these people. And I was just like, no, I'm fine. As I was whittling away and also constantly cold and also getting weaker and all this other stuff. So, but I had anorexia and there's other types of eating disorders that have different symptoms. So, you can't make somebody get help is my point. And another side note, eating disorders look different on everybody. I got really tiny because I starved myself, but people starve themselves and their body kind of holds on to weight sometimes. People have, bulimia and they can still kind of look like the same size because their body does absorb some nutrients before they throw it up. Some people have binge eating disorder and they might even look like they're overweight. So you can't tell just by looking that somebody has an eating disorder. There are signs and symptoms, some of which are dressing in layers. I did this a lot because I thought it would cover up how small I was getting, and it kind of worked to some extent. But even if someone's getting bigger because they binge a lot or whatever, they might try to cover the shape of their body with extra clothing. The second thing is fixation on weight or eating. And obviously, if someone has an eating disorder, they focus on food. It's a control mechanism. I focused on food because I felt like at least I could control something in my life, and it kind of gave me it felt like loving myself in a weird way. But obviously, it wasn't healthy. But I was very fixated on food. I would do tons of research about just like nutrition facts. I could tell you how many calories or grams of fat or carbs were in any given food item, even if it didn't have like a nutrition label. Like I could tell you a banana is like 110 calories or whatever it is, a medium banana, not a large one, whatever, or an apple is 80 or whatever. So I could tell you any of that stuff because I was so obsessed with it. I even thought for a while about studying, I was an English major and I thought about studying dietetics. I was like, oh, I can be a dietitian, then I can know everything about it and control my body even better. But I didn't actually want to study that. See, third sign is difficulty eating around others. So I did this a lot. I avoided like eating in large groups or just one-on-one with people. I didn't want anyone commenting on what I was eating or not eating. I didn't want there to be pressure for me to eat. I definitely didn't want anyone to express concern or whatever. So I avoided eating in groups. That's definitely a big sign. Food-based rituals and routines, that's like having to cut your food into really small pieces, only eating foods that like aren't touching, only eating certain foods, or only eating at certain times of day, or like doing a certain thing while you're eating. Like I had a teammate or roommate in college. She would like scroll through Pinterest while she was eating, and she'd get kind of upset if anybody interrupted her scrolling because it was like her ritual. It was her thing. Anyway, so withdrawal from friends and loved ones, that's the fifth sign. That's obvious. Anyone who's going through a hard mental health time, or is suffering from a lot of things like depression or anxiety or an eating disorder or suicidal tendencies, all these things people probably withdraw, and you probably notice it, especially if that person was more outgoing before the withdrawal started. So just keep an eye on that. The sixth thing is sleep disturbances. I personally would wake up in the middle of the night and not be able to go back to sleep because I was so hungry. But also sometimes people sleep a lot because they're really energy depleted or whatnot. So that's another thing. If someone's not sleeping much and looks tired all the time, or if they're sleeping a lot, because that could also be depression or some other types of things. The seventh thing is weight fluctuations. So if someone's going up and down and they're constantly gaining weight or constantly losing weight, it could be a sign of a lot of things. But like I said before, even if someone's anorexic, you're not always like losing a ton of weight. You could just hold on to it. You could get kind of bloated and stuff like that. So, the last thing, unhealthy skin. My skin looked old, like when I was really sick. It got like dry and like sunken. It just didn't look healthy. I didn't look young. It might be waxy, pale, or dull in appearance. So here are some things you can do to help. Encourage them to seek help, not in a pushy way. I would not recommend like bombarding them with an intervention. But if you express concern in a kind way and just do it with love, just say, I'm really worried about you. Is everything okay? Is anything bothering you? Is there anything I can do to help? And just be very kind and like, I found some people would express concern in a way that I was like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. And some people would express concern in a way that made me feel safe talking to them. And there's a difference. And I don't really know how to tell you to be different, but try to be the safe space for somebody. The second thing is, like I mentioned earlier, don't talk about weight. Just shut up. Just don't talk about it. I had to tell my family, like, I think my mom was talking about like one of my cousins' weight or something. And I just said, Mom, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about weight. And then she respected that. So, but I had to tell her. So maybe if you're the person who is concerned about a loved one, just avoid talking about weight. The third thing is, especially when someone's in recovery, offer to help them with meals. Offer to cook for them, because I never liked being around food that much, and preparing meals kind of bothered me, just because it added like time around food, and I was like, oh, there's all these extra temptations and pressures. And so if you help them like prepare a meal for them, something that's healthy, something that's also palatable to them or whatever, that could be a huge help. The fourth thing you could do, offer to help in other ways. So when I was going through recovery, like I was in college, I had a full course that I was doing my master's at the time, and I was a college athlete, like all these things that were stressful. But my boyfriend at the time was definitely very helpful. Like he would clean the apartment, or he would do like little things that took the stress off of me. He would walk with me to therapy or whatever. So just doing small little things to kind of ease the stress of life can help somebody focus on their mental health. And that can go a long ways. And that doesn't really require you understanding the eating disorder or anything like that. Which brings me to my last point. Learn more about eating disorders. Knowing as much as possible about the eating disorder can help you know how to support somebody, because it takes away the confusion of thinking, why don't you just eat or whatever, which is the worst possible thing to say to somebody. Never say that. And it also, how do I say this? It shows the person that you love that you're willing to understand what they're facing and empathize with them better, instead of coming at them in a way that is expecting them to explain the problem, right? It's kind of like expecting women to explain sexism or expecting minorities to explain racism or whatever. It's kind of, it puts the onus on the person who's suffering, and it can be really exhausting. So, and that goes with almost anything other than eating disorders too, like any other type of mental health concern or physical injury or whatever. Supporting someone with an eating disorder doesn't have to be like a grand production. You don't have to do a ton of things or go hugely out of your way. You can just be kind. And I think that that is probably the most obvious advice, but it goes so far. You don't have to, you know, change their world, because you can't. They're already trying to do that if they're going through recovery. Or they're really stuck and they're in a lot of pain, mental pain, emotional pain, maybe physical pain. And all they really need, if they're stuck still, is somebody to be kind to them, someone to love them unconditionally. And I know that's really hard to do, but those are my tips. I'll link my blog in my bio, my Instagram. You can follow me, whatever. And yeah, I'll be back later.